Hello and welcome back to the Cardiac Cats channel. Today we'll be embarking on our mock draft 2.0 for the offseason and for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So this time we'll be running this on Walk the Mock, which is a draft simulator that either you treat it the same way you can others, do it just by yourself, or you can do it in real time with other members. Probably my favorite way to do the draft. That said, today is going to be done with just the AI on our own. They have mock drafts scheduled on here, and there's not going to be any for at least a few days. So since we want to get this video out now, we're going to do this just on our own, and then in the future I'm hoping that we can have some live ones. So that's how we're going to treat this today. The goal for this draft, ideally, if you can trade back for picks, I think that's great, especially if you can trade back into that early second round, because I think there's going to be some really good names on the board there. But what we're looking to do is we're looking to draft best players available, and if we can, match that with the needs on this team. So with all that said, let's go ahead and kind of dive into the situation for the Jaguars heading into this draft. So, the losses that we have projected, we have four notable players that will not be on the team as we are projecting. Not that this has happened in real life, but what I expect to happen and think is possible. Those four players are Shaquille Griffin, Rory Robertson-Harris, Marvin Jones, and K'Lavon Chaisson. So, with the first two, Shaquille and Roy, they're going to be big cap hits. So we check that out. We'll just look at it really quick because we've talked about this a ton in videos. If you're cutting Shaquille Griffin, you're going to save $13.14 million. A lot of money. And if you're cutting Roy Robertson-Harris, you're saving $7.8 million. Now, I think there's a chance they could look to restructure this deal, but it's going to take, it won't be a restructure. The way I mean that, it will be an extension, essentially. I want to make sure I describe that correctly. So, what they would do is, because this would be his last season with the team on this deal, you see, he's a free agent the next year, Roy Robertson-Harris would essentially be offered, say, 1 or 2 extra years. They'll make this year cheaper, and then they'll backload the contract and they'll pay him a lot the next 2 seasons. And then they'll have to throw in guarantees so he gets what he's worth if he's cut earlier, because this contract right here, his average year is $8 million, and he's being paid $10 million. So there's about $2 million that he should be guaranteed already, which is why you see about $2 million here as dead money. So, that said, I think that he's a guy who will probably be cut, but I could see them keeping him around. What I think probably makes the most sense for the Jaguars is to move on from Roy Robertson-Harris. Just save the money. You need to make some cuts on this roster. You don't want to restructure too much. And then I would look at moving Travon Walker to the defensive line with his hand in the ground where Roy Robertson-Harris was. So, reason why here. So Travon Walker, we look at his snaps by position. You see he played a lot this last season as an outside linebacker in the 3-4. However, we go back to his college tape and his stats, you'll see it's very different. So we'll swap to 2021. So snaps by position. So you see these positions, very bottom, and it accounts for about 14% or so of his snaps in college. And obviously Travon Walker, didn't have an amazing rookie season. He had the big splash plays, he had the big moments, and you love those. But obviously you want more. And you saw he was pretty successful when he had his hand in the dirt. He had more explosiveness to his game, more burst. and you like that. And so I think what the Jaguars should do, because that position he played before, essentially with his hand on the ground on the end of the defensive line, and he can play in other spots too on the line, but where he played the most was on the end, and that's where Roy Robertson Harris was this last year. So the way we're projecting this, we will have Trayvon Walker moving to right end to replace Roy Robertson Harris. We will have probably a veteran getting signed in free agency, the one that I'm big on right now, and I recommend look into it, because you may find the same opinion, you may not. You may just say, hey, this guy's like 30 something years old, why do we want him here? I think Justin Houston is a really good fit for this team, because you look at what he's going to cost, it's minimal. You look at his production, it's been good recently. I think he had 7 sacks last year, which would tie Josh Allen in the regular season. You gotta like that. And I think it's a move that helps the whole pass rushing group as well, because now you have an experienced veteran who has done it at the highest level. Keep in mind, Justin Houston was a player who got 22 sacks in a regular season when he was in Kansas City. I think that was 2014. He knows how to rush the passer. So would you love to add that to your room? Absolutely. I think that would be great. So that's something I would definitely consider for this team. And I think with that said, he's not going to be a guy who's going to play every down. You're going to have him in your 3-4 looks, and that's primarily where he's going to be used. And I think at the same time, that makes it really impressive that he got 7 sacks when he played half the time he used to with other teams. So I think it would be best for the Jaguars to try to find a replacement long-term, and someone who's young, especially because you have Caleb Chason heading out the door. Not that a lot of people have a lot of hope for him right now, which is really unfortunate. I wanted him to be really good here, but you really don't have anyone behind to learn right now. So I think that's a priority for this team. In addition to that, I think you could look at someone who can play guard and also be a swing tackle. I think that's fine. And we will have Jawan Taylor predicted back to the Jaguars in this. I think they will find a way to keep him. But the truth is, after this next year, they are probably not going to have all 3 of these players around. I mean, Jawan, if he comes back, I think he'll be back for a few years. Because at least 2 seasons will probably go by where Jawan Taylor is, able to stay on this team and not be cut, because Jawan will have a huge dead cap hit, kind of like we saw with Cam Robinson. Whereas Cam Robinson this next year, once this season's over, he's going to save you like $17 million on the cap next year. So that's a big deal. Also keep in mind that Brandon Scherf will also be a guy who could be cut for the salary cap. So there's a lot of change that could happen, and maybe you want to bring in someone now who could play at guard and can learn behind them, and then eventually either continue playing guard if he excels there, or move to the outside. That's possible. It'll probably stay at guard, but you want to have a swing tackle. If you can find someone who's versatile and can do all that, I think that's great. Biggest name for me on that in the first round would be DeJuan Jones. After that, maybe a Cody Mock, someone like that. Now, could also just look to get a guard. Osiris Torrance will be a really good name. Maybe in the second round, a guy like Andrew Voorhees. It's different guys they can go after. Other needs for this team, you need a slot corner. And I think that is arguably the biggest need on the defense, because that's where the team was the weakest this last year, where it was outside originally, but that weakness got moved to the slot. So I think it's best to upgrade over Trey Herndon, and most people will probably agree with that. And I think Trey Herndon would feature as a really good backup. for this team. I think he's a great backup to have. So I imagine him to stick around, but I think this team would be better getting another player who can start there. You know, if you're going for it in the first round, I think there's two names I would highly consider, those being Devin Witherspoon and Brian Branch. But they'll probably be off the board before this pick. Now, to run through the rest of this, and then we'll get started and go through this draft, because we've been talking for a while. Tight end is a big need, I think, because even though Evan Ingram is probably going to be back with this team, Doug Peterson loves to run the two tight end sets. He did it in Philadelphia, did it very successfully with Dallas Goedert and Zach Ertz. I think there will be an opportunity for this team on day one to set up something like that again. If Michael Mayer's sitting there, that's a really enticing pick for this team. But if not, I think on day two, early on with your first selection, or if you want to trade up, you'll have some good names maybe available. Darnell Washington, that's questionable whether he'll be there. But you've also got Luke Musgrave, who could be on the board. Or maybe like Dalton Kincaid. Some different names that you could go with. And I think later in this draft, unless there's a really good player who just falls off a cliff, you're looking for a complementary running back. Ideally someone who can block and has really good receiving skills, because those are two facets that really haven't broken out with this team. And then you're going to look for a wide receiver to be your fourth guy, unless you're unless you're signing someone in free agency. I think that's also an option. Could get a McCole Hardman or Paris Campbell to fix the speed issue. But if not, I think you need a receiver. So those are the needs I've got for the Jaguars. I think you can throw other things out there that would help. I think you can absolutely do that. You'd love to get an interior defensive lineman who can pass rush. Reason why I don't talk about that a lot is because on the interior, you've got pretty much Jalen Carter. I guess he's farther down the board now. Brian Bresee. Both of them are probably off the board, and I'm not huge on Brian Bresee. So I don't really mention that as much, and I think you could also get a cornerback who could learn the outside early on. But hopefully you hit two birds with one stone. You get a guy who starts in the slot, maybe long term, goes to the outside, like a Devon Witherspoon. But you're hoping on that. You don't know if he'll be available. So with that said, let's go ahead and hop in this. So start draft. We're going to go pick by pick early on. I think as we get on later, we'll just skip to the pick. So start moving through these. Got the normal so far. Kind of what you expect at this point. Will Levis to the Lions is a little different. Anthony Richardson goes early, so all the quarterbacks are off the board instantly. So we're not going to be trading back to help someone get a quarterback. There goes top corner. Paris Johnson would be a great name to get in Jacksonville. I think he would fit in about every way. But I don't think he's going to be available, as you see. That's early. I don't know if I like that pick a ton. Pierce Skronsky's off the board. So you got your top offensive tackles who are versatile off the board. Second receiver off the board. Then we got the third. There's Witherspoon. So DeJuan Jones off the board really early here. Definitely someone I would love to get at 24, but he won't be available. Brian Branch, another name you'd love. I don't feel comfortable trading up here. I don't want to give up the capital. Someone good will be available at 24. So we're going to let this go on. Nolan Smith to the Buccaneers. Brian Bresee off the board. Broderick Jones. Jackson Smith and Jigba. And Isaiah Foskey. So we are now on the board. Or on the clock, not on the board yet. We'll be on the board in a moment. First big name on this list, obviously, is Michael Mayer. Bijan Robinson's still available. Don't think that's going to happen, though. Cam Smith is on the board, and Keely Ringo is. Those are some cornerbacks you could consider. Now, let's look at Cam Smith for a moment. Oh my. Gotta remind myself, okay, South Carolina. Let's find him. Okay. So, you could take Cam Smith early on, but this is my issue. You look at how much he's played in the slot. It is very minimal. And you could teach him to play in the slot. So I don't think that's an awful pick. But I'm not big on getting Cam Smith here for that reason. Now, Keely Ringo, he's a guy who has all the traits, and I think that the Jaguars could love. I think Balky could love him. But he's not a guy I'd really want here either at that point. Osiris Torrance could be a really good dark horse pick. He's from Florida. A lot of people would love that, but more importantly, he's the best guard in the class. He's a run mauler, and that gives you something that I think you're lacking on the interior. And if Brandon Scherf's game steps up and Luke Fortner continues to develop, I think you have a fantastic interior to your offensive line. Jalen Hyatt, I don't think he's 27. He's got speed, but not a ton else right now. Anton Harrison could be a really good pick, but he's more of a tackle prospect. I'm not sure what kind of impact he makes off the bat. He could probably play guard, but he doesn't have any experience at the position right now. Clark Phillips could be a really good dark horse pick as well. Now, Antonio Johnson, another name to throw on the board. He would be a really good option for the slot if you're looking for someone who might be able to cover tight ends better. And at this point, Darnell Washington, it's a little too early for me, and you got Michael Mayer on the board, so this one's going to be out of the question, as much as I like him. And B.J. Ojulari would be a really good pass rusher. I think you've got some names down this board that you would consider trading up for if they fall, say, past 40. So keep that in mind. Might be able to snag him later. But this one's going to be Michael Mayer for me. The reason why I'm going to select him, and you might hate it because you see it in every mock draft now, where it's just Michael Mayer, it makes sense, we got to do this, and it's pretty boring to see. But you want to get your two tight ends on this offense for Doug Peterson to run it the way he wants to run it. I think it's a fantastic option. And for the people who want another receiver on this team, Michael Mayer's another receiver for you, and he doubles as a blocker. He can get better at blocking. He can improve his overall game still, but he has the makings of one of the best tight ends in the NFL. They call him Little Gronk for a reason, and we've seen how big of an impact that Robert Gronkowski had in New England, in Tampa Bay. It's a huge part of that team. So it makes a ton of sense to go after a guy like that in the first round. At this point, I think you want to get a game changer on your team with the first pick. And trust me, they will find a way to get Mayer out on the field a ton. They'll find a way to run two tight end sets a lot. This will help your run blocking, because he'll take over for Ingram in that. And these guys can both be on the field at the same time as pass catchers. I think, to me, it makes a ton of sense, because now you have your three receivers, Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, and you have two tight ends you can toss to as well. In Evan Ingram and Michael Mayer, you've got ETN in the backfield. He can catch the ball as well. I think they need to get him more involved in that this next season. But you've got a star-studded cast on offense. You're surrounding your franchise quarterback. That pick makes a ton of sense to me. So we're going to start moving, because we are almost 20 minutes into this. So let's see who starts going off the board. And I'm assuming that Saquon Barkley is not in New York based off that. Early for him. Keely Ringo goes there. Cam Smith. No offensive line help. This will probably be Anton Harrison. No? Okay. So Anton's falling. Gus Van Ness. Jalen Hyatt. So B.J. Ojulari to the Texans. Don't like that. It's guys we would consider trading up for at this point. Osiris Torrance and Anton Harrison. Probably the only guys I would do it for. Now, at this point, what would you have to give up to move there? And I would heavily consider it. The Cardinals, yeah, I think this is gonna be, he's gonna be picked really soon. So let's see what the value is here. We're gonna be a little risky. 560, and our pick is worth 340. Yeah, that's probably gonna be a little too much. So to move up that far, you're probably giving up your third rounder. Yeah, I'll hold off. It's not off the board yet. Still not off the board. The Raiders. What would this be worth? So 520 to 340. So about 180 difference. I would think you're moving up pretty far. You've also got Clark Phillips on the board here too. I'm going to wait and then see if we can give up a fourth to move up. Okay, there he goes. Darnell Washington. Tanner McKee. Yep. So we're not going to land any of them. We just don't want to give up that kind of capital to go up that far. One name on here still that has fallen really far is Rashee Rice for a bit of a crazy pick. But yeah, I think at this point we're just going to kind of go down to our pick. It would have been really nice to trade up, but I just don't think you want to throw away that capital on it. And we can determine what trade to send, force the AI to accept it, but I don't want to be unfair about that. So we got names flying off the board. Cody Mock's off. Okay. So Derek Hall is available on here. Be your top edge guy. I don't know as much on Derek Hall, honestly. Let's see if we can learn anything about where he's played. We'll look at a draft profile for him. I apologize, this is going to be a really long video. I guess he's played 6 snaps at slot corner. I don't like that. So on the defensive line. Okay, so he's played outside linebacker a lot. This might be a really good selection here. So let's look at his draft profile. I'll make sure this makes sense for the Jaguars because they're going to care a lot about size. Yeah, this might make a lot of sense because he fits your big need if you want to work on the pass rush. The Jaguars probably look at this and they're like, oh yeah, we can make him the top pass rusher in the NFL in 2 years. He just needs to be developed. But he's got everything else. And I like this too. You get a leader on the field. I think that makes a ton of sense. This is my first time ever selecting Derek Hall, so we'll do a little more research after this for sure. But I like that pick a lot here. Like we said, dark horse here could be Rashee Rice. You might like that a ton too. I think he would be a really good receiver at some point. But you got your guys. It's not going to have a huge impact. And you can get a pass rusher at this point. You can really stack your team. And I think that's the most important place to work. Gervin Dexter, still on the board. Kalijah Cansey is as well. You could consider them at this pick. Andrew Voorhees, another guy I would consider. So, got some names that you could go with, but I think this pick has got to be Derek Hall. So now, You've got your 2 tight end system on offense. You've got your outside linebacker. You move Trayvon Walker to the line. So your lineup you're looking at, essentially, on your defensive line, your run stoppers are Devon Hamilton and Folorenzo Fatukasi. Devon Hamilton as well, I think, can get better as a pass rusher. He got 3 sacks last year, which is kind of shocking because it's not really a guy I thought of as being able to rush the passer at all, but he's gotten some pressure and gotten some sacks. And on the ends, outside of him, so this will be on the defensive line, hand the dirt, you have Arden Key, DeJuan Smoot, assuming you re-sign them. We have them re-signed in this scenario. And then Trayvon Walker. Roy Robertson Harris is gone. And at your outside linebacker spots, you have Josh Allen, Justin Houston, or someone like him, and he would be swapping out with Derek Hall, who you would develop and get ready to start over the year. So I like that pick. You address a big need for the Doug Peterson offense, that second really good tight end, and you get your pass rusher on defense. So now at this point, what you got left that you really want to hit, you need your slot corner. That's a huge need. You'd love to get someone for the offensive line, but I'm not sure that one's going to happen. So we'll go ahead and we'll start moving. Before we do, actually, cornerback, we've got some names still on the board. This would be my target if you're looking for a slot guy. I think he's a really good fit as for what the Jaguars want to do on defense. But other names you could consider here too. Deonte Banks might be a really good choice. He was even mocked to the Jaguars in the first round. So, there we go. So, yeah, Rashee Rice to the Giants. That's a really good pick. Wasn't their last pick kind of bad? Yeah. Oh, they got Bijan Robinson. So they're surrounding Daniel Jones. We don't care about that. We care about the Jaguars. There goes Luke Musgrave. Now we're in the 3rd round. So far, this draft has gone really well, I think, for the Jaguars. That's a player I like off the board. Andrew Voorhees gone. Clyde Cansey's gone. Tyler Steen. Yes, we're kind of flying through. Eli Ricks. I think we're going to have pretty good choice of corner. Okay, never mind. I think it heard me. We're just going to cross our fingers he doesn't go here. Okay. So that's probably the pick. But we're going to see who's available. There might be someone really good. 2 names I love. Oh, that kills. There's 3 guys I would take with this pick at this point. There's Travius Hodges-Tomlinson, Xavier Hutchinson, and Will McDonald. Now, Will McDonald, actually, we will not need because we hit Derek Hall already. We've got our outside linebacker, but I like Will McDonald a lot. So your question is, do you want a slot corner or a receiver? And as much as I'd love to get Xavier Hutchinson, I think you got to get the slot corner. Now, we could look to trade up for Xavier. I think that's an option. And also something to throw out there really fast. So, this is not updated, the Calvin Ridley compensation. So, we will, when we get to this 5th rounder, trade that to the Falcons because right now they have our 6th because Calvin Ridley's not reinstated yet. He will be reinstated. So, we'll swap those picks because that changes to a 5th once he's reinstated. But we'll do that at that point. Hopefully I remember. So this will be Travius Hodges-Tomlinson. So you've hit your 2 needs on defense, the 2 biggest needs. You need another pass rusher. You move Trayvon Walker to the line. You can line him up in the middle if you want to. So you have your pass rush essentially answered. Your tight end position answered. Absolutely answered. And I think you have the foundation for what is the best tight end room in the NFL if it wasn't for Travis Kelce existing in the same league. And you got your slot corner. Now, Travius might not go to the Jaguars at this point because of his size. He is a small guy, unfortunately. But he plays really well. You love so many other things about him. 5'9". So, it is not good as far as his height. And maybe he ends up being a different height in the combine. You hope so. But I like him. I think he would be a good fit. It's really just a question of whether the Jaguars think the same thing. So, we'll start moving. What we're looking for at this point, offensive lineman, if we get anyone who falls, that's worth the pick. We'll be looking for a running back, and we'll be looking for a receiver. Yep, and there he goes. He was going to go pretty soon, and I think even before our selection, he will probably be gone. These receivers are probably going to fly off the board again. There goes Will McDonald. And then we get into compensatory picks. One guy I would heavily consider at running back is getting Kenny McIntosh. If it's not him, Deuce Vaughn makes a lot of sense too. Although I think it's kind of the same as Hodges Tomlinson, where it's size that could turn the Jaguars off. They see Kenny McIntosh already kind of sitting high on the board. I think we considered trading up for him. So let's look at the value of these draft picks. 64 to 54. So by those means, if we want to trade up that far and acquire him, giving up a 6th rounder. Oh, back here. I would do that. I think we'll make that trade. And we already kind of want to, concentrate these picks. So, oh man, we're up really soon actually. So we'll throw them, I think it's 632, right? We'll get back 625. We do not have it right now. So we'll throw 632 to get up there for that pick. See, the value is really close on that. If we had to, heck, I'd throw in like a 7th rounder next year. Although apparently that's worth quite a bit. And 7.9's worth 1 point. Wouldn't even make it up. So we'll do that. So now we're on the clock. We're going to make sure we get him. Because getting Kenny McIntosh here, I think that completes the draft. That completes your big needs. Because what Kenny McIntosh does when he comes to this team, even though he's not a great pass blocker, he is really good as a receiving back. He's one of the best in college right now. And as far as fitting in the Doug Peterson's offense, you could see him used anywhere on this offense. So I think Kenny McIntosh, he's probably the running back I would look at first. Behind him, like I said, Deuce Vaughn would be my next guy. You also see he's got a ton of receiving yards too, and he's just a fun back to watch. I really like seeing what he can do. So, another guy we would consider. So now we are looking at going after either a receiver, an offensive lineman, or just whatever the best thing left is. So we'll just go ahead and go to our pick. See, Marvin Mims went off the board where we were before. Joe Tippmann would have been a guy I'd consider. So yeah, I don't think we were going to get Kenny McIntosh. I think he would have gone, possibly. How high he was. At this point, I'm not huge on any of these players. See if anyone's hiding down the board a ways. I know Wanya Morris has got a bit of hype I don't know as much on him, though. So he's a guy I'll need to look into. Jartavius Martin, if they are unable to land a slot corner early on, I think he's a dark horse for who they could look at. Better size as well, 6 feet. I personally don't see names I'm huge on down here. So let's look at Wanya Morris. Check him out here really quick. I know he was good at the Senior Bowl. Yeah. So he's a developmental guy. Yep, they even say it down here. Zone blocking scheme. I believe the Jaguars run a bit of zone with their rushing attack. 4th round value, that's where we're selecting. Late in the 4th round, actually. His size, I think, was good. Yeah. And maybe he plays guard. Yeah, I mean, I think that would be your selection at this point. Now, we could have, another thing we could have done, could have gone after, say, I don't want to say his name, actually. Gone after him, or gone after, like, Joe Tippmann. And Tippmann maybe could play guard, but he's a center. He'd be a good backup there. But you also got Tyler Shatley, so it's more so you pick him because it's a higher value at that point. Mike Morris may be a name that people like as well. We'll look at him actually really quick too. But Wanya Morris probably be the better Morris for this pick. We'll check this out real fast, and then we'll make the selection. Yeah, nothing terrible. It's a defensive end, higher draft value according to Draft Network. We've already hit that position. I mean, if we move Walker there, I don't think that's as much of a need. I'd rather get a tackle you could develop. This is a good place to get one. If you've got someone you like on the board at this point, that's ideal. You know, because we might see an exodus of players at that position, which by that I mean probably 1 or 2 guys over the next 2 off seasons, including this one. So that will be our selection. Now, we are just going to go ahead, start fast forwarding, go to the next pick, because this is going to be traded to the Falcons, because we do not own this selection once the draft comes around. Once again, reason why is the Calvin Ridley compensation will change once he's reinstated. So we'll offer that. There we go. See, they picked Cameron Mitchell. Now we've made 5 selections. We have 8. There's 8 overall, 3 remaining. I would probably look to combine some of those. So let's get close to our next pick. Jartavius Martin off. Ronnie Hickman finally moved up the boards on here. Not that he's some great player, but he was like pretty much undrafted in a lot of these. Let's just go to our next pick. Tyjae Spears might have been a really good pick late on. At this point, just looking for guys who could end up being really good. Probably don't gotta think as much on these selections either. We already got our tight end. I don't think we need to hit that again. Quindell Johnson, I think he's considerable. Let's look at Anthony Johnson really quick. Outside cornerback. Yeah, he's got good length. Yep. Okay, that's what we will go with here. So we're going to give them a cornerback that they can develop on the outside. And obviously they got 2 last offseason, but I'm okay with it. I'm fine with it. Maybe you like a different pick, but this is the 6th round of the NFL draft. It will be fine. And you could say as well, Travius Hodges-Tomlinson could be your outside cornerback if someone goes down. But I just think with his size, that's going to be a lot to ask for. So let's get someone they can develop. at that point. So we'll just look through here really quick, see if there's anyone we want to package up for. Max Dugan would be a good backup, but they've already got Nathan Rourke. Seems like he's going to be the backup going forward. There's some things pointing towards that. Trey Tucker. He will be a name I will probably take at the very end. I like his film. I think he could be a good guy they develop. So I think we're just going to actually stay put at these selections. Just finish it out like that. So next selection. And we pick early in the 7th. So we could wait on Trey Tucker, I think. Trevor Reed. I think he's worth more than going this late. So let's go with him. We'll go to the next selection and hope Trey Tucker's still there. That way I can make the pick quick. Yep, he is. Okay. And we will select Trey Tucker with the final pick. And we'll finish off the draft. So, yeah, I mean, I think this is a really good draft. This is definitely one of the ones I'm happier with. And I'll share a secret with you. I actually tried recording this yesterday and couldn't record as much of it as I wanted at the computer because it was a live one with other people. It's like 2 minutes per pick. So it was like 7 hours that it went by, and I was only home for about 2.5. So I only got to make the first 2 selections, and it was just awful. Because it was like every time I'd go to trade for someone, they would be selected like 5 seconds after, or I would be like, oh, I'm going to get this player at my pick, and then he'd fly off the board. Like, it was just awful, and then my selections were bad. I was just off, so I didn't use it. Just because I didn't think it would be really good content. So we take another shot at here. I would love this draft for the Jaguars. Maybe you let me know what you think for sure. We had 9 selections before. We consolidated them. So we moved up 5 slots to get up to 414. Make sure we got Kenny McIntosh. I think that was absolutely worth it, especially when you consider all you gave up was the late 6th. I don't think that's a huge deal. And then this trade is the Calvin Ridley trade. That will be the new compensation they will get. And then it will probably be a 3rd or a 2nd rounder next year, depending on whether Calvin Ridley stays around or not. So, going back through these picks, we'll just evaluate this, and then we'll go ahead and wrap it up. So, Michael Mayer, like we said, adds your second tight end, adds a really damn good second tight end. You're not worried about injuries as much at that spot either, because you have someone who can play behind Ingram, or if he goes down, you still got Ingram. So, you have a really good spot there, and you're able to run the offense with another receiver essentially on the field, a better run blocker. I think it helps your offense in a lot of ways, and it helps with the coaching because that's the way they want to be able to coach the offense. You need to get players that fit what they want to do. So I think Michael Mayer does that. At your second selection, would have liked to move up. That's the only thing I would say didn't work out. But I think we still got a really good selection there. I think we did it without giving up value either, because you're saying goodbye to one of these players if you move up. Maybe you're fine with that too. But Osiris Torrance would have been really nice, but weren't able to get him. Clark Phillips would have been as well. But we got Derek Hall. So essentially what we're doing with the pass rush, we're moving Trayvon Walker to the line, moving on from Roy Robertson Harris, keeping everyone else. You're getting Justin Houston or someone similar, an experienced veteran who can start there, and you're developing Derek Hall behind, putting him in more of a starting role as you get through the season, and that's your guy going forward. So that's your plan with that pick. Travis Hodges-Tomlinson, you love everything about him except for the size. That's the only thing you don't like. And maybe this is unrealistic for the Jaguars because of size, but the way he plays, he's a big play guy, a big hitter, I think those things fit fantastic into the Jaguars defense. I think it transforms a weakness into something you can rely on. You're not going to be too worried about slot corner after this. At least after the few rusty games he'll probably start the season out with. So, after that, you get your complimentary running back. Only thing you're really missing with McIntosh is the pass protection. So, maybe Hasty's good at that. I actually don't know. And I'll look that up on my own time. We're already really far in. But I think McIntosh is a really good fit for the Jaguars. And this is a guy who even played outside as a receiver. Like, you can put him anywhere. I recommend go watch him play. Go watch some highlights on him. You will like the highlights from this guy. He's fun to watch. Wanya Morris here was another really good selection. You get your tackle that you can develop. So I gotta like that. Anthony Johnson, outside cornerback you could look to develop. Maybe something's there, maybe it's not. Trevor Reed, another offensive lineman for depth. You like that because, well, you got Wanya Morris, of course, but, Trevor Reed might be more of a guard guy. So you're just throwing darts at the board at this point. And Trey Tucker's also pretty fun to watch. And he might be a steal in the later rounds. Kind of like what we thought that Kevin Austin would be. But obviously Kevin Austin, hasn't really worked out so far. So that's my thoughts on this draft as far as, really what you're missing on this team at this point. You could have some size issues in the slot. Maybe you worry about covering Travis Kelce, but every team is going to worry about that, quite frankly. You didn't get an offensive lineman early on. You got one in the middle rounds, so you haven't really upgraded your offensive line a ton. You have upgraded your run blocking, though, and your pass protection a little bit with Michael Mayer. You didn't get a blocking running back, which is fine. I don't think that's do or die need. And at receiver, you didn't draft anyone early, but I think Trey Tucker, you got him, and you can develop him. So, yeah, overall, actually probably could be my favorite draft so far this offseason. I think it turned out really well. So let me know what you think. Let me know what you would have done different as well. I love talking about the draft. It's really fun. It's my favorite time of year, other than when the Jaguars are good and in the playoffs. So, hopefully it'll be my second favorite time of the year going forward and stay like it was this year. So, thank you guys. Appreciate it. Let me know what you like to see on here as well, and we'll see you in the next video.